Hi, and welcome back to Resilience Unravelled. And tonight I'm faced with two people from the States, and they're from a woman-owned business. So I feel a bit out of the equation here, but I'm going to ask them questions and they're going to inform and guide me and hopefully everybody else in the same process. So firstly, welcome Rachel Pastor. How are you this evening?
Russell, I am wonderful. Thank you for having us on your podcast. We're excited to really share about this topic that I think is very intriguing for a lot of people, especially right now.
Tiffany Hearn, nice to meet you. Say hello.
Hello, 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 everybody. Thank you so much for having us. It's great to be here. Really
Great,
excited for the conversation.
great. And where in the world are the pair of you? Where are you?
I'm in
I,
Colorado.
yep, and I'm in San Diego.
Very good. Oh, so I like San Diego. It's a really lovely city.
It
Very
is
nice.
not too bad, not a bad place.
So, Rachel, tell us a bit about yourself.
Yes, like I said, I live in Colorado and I'm a mother, I'm a wife, and I am an entrepreneur. I've been in the wellness space since 2008. And I really got into that path through my own transformation of going through really a time in life that was really dark. I was a heroin addict from the time I was 15 to the time I was 20.
Oh,
And I was homeless. And when I was 20, I really came to a really death or change point in my life. And I had lost my boyfriend that I had been an addict with for 5 years through overdose. And through my recovery, I was introduced to wellness. I was introduced to the gym. I had a friend invite me to the gym, and I thought, who the heck wants to go to a gym and work out? And she wanted to go work out and walk. She wanted to go walk on the treadmill together and talk. And I said, that doesn't sound fun at all. But I had no really, I was trying to build relationships in this new life that I was living and trying to create a new identity. And so I went with her and we walked on the treadmill and we talked and it was lovely. And I wanted to go back again and again. And I went to this cycling class and I sat down on the bike. I had no idea what the hell I was in for. Sat down, instructor turns the lights down, turns the music up, and music just starts blaring. And everybody in the class is just going and hooting and hollering. And I just went with it. And I left there and the endorphins were kicking. And I was driving home and I thought, whatever this is, I felt like I had found the greatest drug in the world and I didn't even need a
mm,
drug.
mm.
And I said, whatever this is, I'm going to bring this to the world. And that really became my mission in life. And so I worked in the health and fitness space for many years, built a large online coaching company, built Colorado's largest fitness festival, wrote a book, did all the
Wow.
things. And then one day I woke up and I really started to awaken to the fact of how we all are programmed and why was it that somebody couldn't lose the weight? Or why was it that they lose the weight and then gain it all back? Why was
Mm,
it they couldn't stick with these habits and behaviors? What was going on? And as I started to study it, I ended up becoming a master of neurolinguistic programming. And I really started to open my mind more and more to the fact that if we didn't change what was going on in our hearts and our heads,
yeah.
we are just we're just running in the same loops over and over again, which led me to the path I'm on now, which is working in the plant medicine space. So Tiffany
Okay.
and I work in psychedelics. We work specifically with psilocybin and LSD. And so we help people on the surface. We are a products company, but much deeper than that, we are about helping really awakening the collective and helping people rewire their minds and hearts and open their hearts for a different experience in life to create a new reality. And so that's a little about me.
Okay, very good. Beat that, Tiffany.
Amazing. Gosh, I love hearing Rachel's story every time she shares it because I always learn something new, like her writing a book. I didn't know you even wrote a book. And I know so much about her, so it's amazing. So Yeah, my background slightly different. And so I grew up with a lot of adversity in my childhood. We were homeless as well at one point, living in and out of shelters. Grew up without a father and a single mother home until I was living with an adoptive family. And as I got older in life, a lot of the childhood trauma really started to come to the surface and really started to impact me and affect me. And I played Division I basketball, got a full ride scholarship to Providence College, was very type A, very driven, took responsibility at a very young age, and really wanted to cultivate a life that was different than the life that I had been living. And so that was very interesting to have that approach because I didn't have an example of any of that. It was more so something that I just knew and I felt within me. And I followed that. And so after college, I ended up moving to Chicago, and that's where I started my career in the medical field, which was definitely not planned. I had no idea what that route even was, but a job fell into my lap. I took it and I started with medical sales and ended up climbing the corporate ladder. Thought that was the success journey that I really wanted to explore. And I was in the medical industry in executive director roles for about 15 years. And that's where a lot of the unhealthy patterns and trauma and depression and high stress levels and anxiousness really started to really shine the loudest for me because I was very successful, but very unfulfilled and was just living this life that I really did not want to really be in. But I didn't really know anything different than that and was on antidepressants, Lexapro and Adderall for about 8 years and was in therapy, was doing a lot of personal development work. Those things were really supportive, but I wasn't able to really get to the root of what's really going on here. Where is this coming from? How can I really change a lot of these behaviors from a really deep surface root level? And somewhere along the journey, that's where I started hearing about microdosing and hearing about psychedelics. And I started to explore that path and started microdosing. And within 3 months, I was completely off my medications. Still have not looked back. It's been over 8 years. And so you pair that with a really positive experience and also a desire to look for a different career path. And it went down that direction. And so I started working and coaching and mentoring people through microdosing in the psychedelic world 8 years ago now. And then I was in that for about 4 years and I was like, okay, now I'm missing the business background because I was in business and strategy and business development. And I'm like, all right, how can I start to blend these worlds? And so that's what I did and started doing advising for companies and business development, specifically in the psychedelic world. And that's what we're doing here with Golden Rule. And it's incredible and it's exciting and really excited to deepen that conversation today.
Oh, fantastic. That's a great introduction. And I think we're going to just unpack a few basics first, if that's okay. First, Rachel, I've got to ask you this question. I understand what hollering is, but what's hooting?
Hooting and hollering. Hooting and
Yay.
hollering.
I think I can imagine. Look, take us through what a psychedelic is and what the effect of it is, and just start us at the real basics, whichever one wants to go with that first.
Yeah. So when we're talking about psychedelics here today, there are many different psychedelics in plant medicines, but our focus is going to be with psilocybin mushrooms and then LSD. And what we're really referencing when we talk about microdosing, obviously you can sit with a higher dose, and that's what our society imagines when we think of psychedelics and hallucinations and tripping and hippies and this whole direction. But what we're really talking about here is microdosing being sub-perceptual, being sub-intoxicating, non-hallucinogenic, where you're basically taking 1/10 to 1/20th of a ceremonial dose or a macro dose, and you're able to break that down into daily or every other day throughout the week usage of a psychedelic. And the intent is to work with these substances or these medicines at a much lower dose where you're fully functioning, you're unlocking certain behavioral changes, you're promoting neuroplasticity in the brain, your brain is creating new pathways. And really what this allows is these healing benefits, such as breaking old habits, creating new healthier behaviors, alleviating anxiety. There's been a ton of incredible research where whether it's mental health therapeutics such as anxiety, depression, addiction, alcoholism, PTSD, there's all these amazing benefits that these low dose of psychedelics are providing people when you can really understand how to use them in a way that's intentional, that's effective. And so you're essentially working with these substances or medicines over a longer period of time versus all at once. And that allows you to rewire the brain over a slower period of time and go in and start to make a lot of these changes that we really are looking to create.
Okay, I get that logic. I'm going to come back for your evidence in a minute because you've implied there's all sorts of evidence. I find it interesting that you talked about pathways, behaviors, addiction, and everything, basically. But why is it that microdoses are working? What's the logic for that? Because if you think about tiny ideas like homeopathy and things like that, they clearly don't work, but this acts like a placebo. How are microdoses actually working on the brain?
Yes. So really what's happening in the brain is it's creating neuroplasticity and it's rewiring our brain. It's making our brains more malleable, more plastic. And what that does is it allows us to be more adaptable, to be more receptive to making changes. And so if you take the active ingredient in psilocybin, which is psilocin, when we ingest that, it's breaking down into the gut, which then goes to the gut to brain axis, which is then what's creating a lot of the neuroplasticity. And there's some research with microdosing. The majority of the research is with high doses, but there's a lot that's starting to come out where the neuroplasticity is still affecting people from a lower dose perspective. And because of what's happening in the regions of the brain, think of the left and the right hemisphere of the brain that are typically not always communicating with one another. All of a sudden, because it's more plastic, it's more malleable, those regions are firing off with the neuroplasticity. They're now able to communicate with one another and go in and help people make a lot of these changes. To give another example, we all have the amygdala part of the brain. It's that tiny little almond shape that is actually, it's tiny but mighty. It's loud. It's the fear response. It's the anxious response. It's the response that we have when we're desiring something and then we get nervous and we hold back and we're not feeling confident to pursue the thing that we really want. That holds a lot of people back in a lot of ways. And so that piece, when we're working with psychedelics, actually starts to quiet down. And when that quiets down, we're able to get more present with ourselves. We're able to tune in to, okay, how do I then want to move forward with this in a way where now I'm not feeling as held back because that's not as loud and active. I would say another example is when we're stuck in certain patterns, behavioral patterns from childhood, adolescence years, where we're stuck and we're on autopilot with something that seems to be really repetitive. And the example that I love to give with that is on a hamster wheel, and we're just repeating this pattern over and over. Gosh, why can't I change this? Why does this keep showing up for me? Think of that as like one pathway in the brain that we're just literally going over and over. When we're working with psychedelics, all of a sudden these new pathways are being established, or our current pathways are getting cleared. Now
But
that's
these must, but these things must be happening randomly. So what you're saying, you're almost attributing a link between this and something else happening as if it's going to affect a behavior. Surely it affects the brain in a random way based on your own sort of chemistry. Why are you so confident that neuroplasticity is created and sticks? Because lots of neuroplasticity doesn't hold. But also, how do you know what results you're going to get from this? Because it just seems random.
It can be random, yeah, and it can certainly seem random, and there's a lot of placebo that's out about it, but there's also a lot of science and there's a lot of proven data out there. If you look at Stanford, if you look at Imperial College, there's a lot of
John
credible
Hopkins.
institutional, Harvard is another example
John
where
Hopkins.
John Hopkins, thank you, exactly, where there's a lot of proven data that this actually works.
Okay, so basically what we're doing is you're talking about microdosing affecting neuroplasticity, opening up new pathways, improving synaptic response and communication strategies in the brain. That makes sense. So given that creates brain capacity, is there an intentional plan then to change behaviors and to change strategies? Or you're not just leaving it to luck?
We always encourage and teach people to set intentions. It is really important to give it an intention because ultimately it's going in there and opening up things. But if it doesn't have direction, you could create anything in any direction, good or bad.
Exactly. That was my point. You just said it better.
Yeah. I didn't know that. Yeah. So I think you got to give it intention. And so I think that's a huge part of what we really set out to do is educate people. So yes, we're a products company, but a big part of what we're doing, especially Tiffany being a part of our team, is going out and educating the world because it is a powerful medicine if you know how to use it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you've talked a little bit about psilocybin, which I believe is from mushrooms, but you've also mentioned LSD, and a lot of people think LSD is a manufactured thing, but I don't think it is, isn't it? From a plant as well.
Yeah, LSD is more synthetic. So when I talk about the science and the neuroplasticity and everything that we shared already, both of them are doing a similar effect. I would say mushrooms, psilocybin mushrooms are more so focused on like serotonin, whereas LSD is more focused on dopamine, but there's a lot of crossover within the two to allow for the serotonin receptors to fire off, for the neuroplasticity, for the regions of the brain. The science is pretty similar with both of them.
Hmm. Yes, and it's interesting is that, and my understanding is that you can have mushrooms and it's ergot that it comes from. I'm stretching back my scientific memory now, but you can put the two things together, can't you? And again, there's some sort of multiplication thing because it is around serotonin manipulation, isn't it? And which is something that's involved in antidepressants and anti-anxiety meds. So I get the sort of the words being in a similar sort of sentence with those other things as well. So that makes sense. But Rachel, you were making some big claims about anti-anxiety going on there. So how does it reduce anxiety?
I could tell you from my personal experience.
Go for it.
So I have always struggled in my past with massive anxiety. I really believe, I think there's a lot of reasons I became a heroin addict. But I think a big part of it was I was experiencing severe anxiety, depression, a lot of overwhelming emotions. And the minute I tried the heroin, it took every feeling I had away. And so it felt very like I had found something that I was looking for. And so after I did get sober from using, all the emotions came rushing back, all the anxiety, everything came back. And so on that journey, I think for me personally, in using the plant medicine, I'm Tiffany's our science gal. She can speak to the science of it. I'm going to speak from the heart. And that is that what it's done for me in helping me remove the anxiety from my life and find peace is that it's opened up my awareness to understanding why I have anxiety, where it's from,
Right,
and allowing me to see it clearly and giving me the opportunity to change it,
right.
which ultimately has changed my life. Because if you're a person who has lived with anxiety your whole life, but you can't figure out why, and now you know why and you know how to change it, man, that's a powerful tool. Yeah. So plant medicine has helped me in opening up that awareness and understanding.
Yes. And for people, serotonin and dopamine are the two vital hormones and neurotransmitters which are rushing around our body. So anything that's around those sorts of things is useful. And don't get me wrong, I'm a big fan of microdosing and I understand it and I get it, even from THC right through to these sorts of things. Can I ask a really stupid question, which is that you're talking about a plant-based medicine? Do you use sort of natural processes to turn this into a product? Because there are some places that have a plant base, but they ultra process it so it loses the sort of plant element. I just don't know.
What's
Where do you sit in
funny,
that?
what's funny is we call it a plant medicine. Actually, mushrooms are not plants.
No, the fungi.
Yeah, exactly. The reason we started to do that is because honestly, people don't understand.
Ah,
So they just relate it to being a plant medicine. But
yeah,
so our process is we do take a naturally growing organic mushroom that we grow, and then we extract it. So we extract the psilocybin from the mushroom in a double extraction process to really take away the a lot of the parts of the mushroom that the body doesn't need.
right.
And essentially are part of the mushroom that make people, if you've ever felt nauseous or anything like that from eating a mushroom, then we remove all that and we just take the psilocybin and drop that into the product.
Does this come in drop or injection or pill format? How does that?
injection sounds amazing, but
Well, there's all sorts of weird things.
I'm giving you a heck, Russell. But capsule is what we sell a lot of. And
Right.
then, so we do capsules and we do edibles,
Gummies.
gummies and chocolates and things like that. Yeah.
So it should be, sorry, I keep getting distracted by your fingernails. They're really jazzy.
Oh,
What are
thank
those?
you. I know, I
Amazing.
just show up in all the color.
I know, I'm very impressed. They're different patterns as well as different, they're
Yeah.
just same colors, aren't they? Anyway, sorry, I'll just stop that now. Maybe I'm hallucinating. The point I was going to make was, is it possible to overdose on these things, or the dose is so minuscule that actually, even if you had a whole bottle, you'd be fine?
Yeah, so the microdoses are so minuscule that you really could have a whole bottle and you would be fine. Mhm.
So is this better to do this under some sort of medical supervision, or are you relying on people's capacity to be adult to help them here?
I do want to rewind to that, and I want to
Okay.
say you'd be fine, but you'd be under a big you'd be
Wouldn't be
hallucinating.
microdosing.
Yeah, you would be experiencing a full trip. But so what was your second question? I'm sorry.
Medical supervision.
Yes. We do recommend that people do have guidance. That's the best way to do it, especially under larger doses, because we do sell some products that help that will facilitate a ceremony type experience of taking a larger dose, anywhere from 1 to 3 to 4 grams. We're probably more in that 1 to 3 dose, or sorry, 1 to 3 gram area. And we recommend that you do have guidance in something like that.
That's interesting. So you're obviously in the States and you ship to the States and your shop's at goldenrollmushrooms.com. What's interesting at the front of it, as soon as I say this, I'm just desperate to do the quiz that you've got. What's the quiz about?
Yeah, so the quiz just directs and guide people to the right product for them based off of what they're looking for. Because we do find that to be ultimately probably one of the most confusing things when people come to our website is one, this is already something new, right?
Yeah,
Two, then on top of it, this is something new and they're trying to have to figure out what product is the right product for them. So that's why we do the quiz.
yes.
But
And so go on.
yeah, I'll add to that. So the quiz is great because it's allowing you to get clear on, okay, what medicine is going to be best for me for exactly what I'm looking for. And it's going to support you with what we have these kits that we've created that's like an all-inclusive where to start, where to begin. And it will allow you to find your dose, to find the medicine that works best for you and the days that you want to microdose. And that's honestly about 90% of working with microdosing.
Yes, okay. So let's say I'm in the States. I've heard of this. Sounds funky. I want to completely change my life and have all that stuff that Rachel has persuaded me I'm going to have, including nails. Now, where do I start? Is there like a simple way to start, or do I have to have medical checks, faff about, go through all sorts of consultations and such, or can I just buy something and start enjoying the benefits?
You can just buy something and start enjoying the benefits. Like, you don't need any kind of medical anything. You can, what we recommend, and this is stated on our website, is that if you are on any medications, that we recommend that you speak to your doctor before starting. So there are recommendations around that, but you don't need any kind of medical in order to consume the product. Yeah.
Okay. And I've noticed at least 4 times in this episode, certainly twice, you've just lifted the most enormous cup to your mouth. Is
Yes.
that, are you consuming mushrooms? Are you getting more and more chilled as this episode's going along, or how's
I
this working?
am. I am. So I like to put it in cacao. So I got a really nice cacao and some almond milk. And then I put in my microdose. So I like to sprinkle it in over the top and then just drink it throughout my day because it's cold here. So I like a nice warm cup of something all day.
So you're scoffing hot chocolate all day with
No, I like tea. I love tea. I'm
tea
gonna
as
have
well.
some next. I won't
Okay.
drink it. This once this is gone, then I'll have some hot tea.
Okay. So imagine if this is possible, that there's a world outside of America, which we don't deal with at the moment. And I know who knew that's all these other countries. But obviously, how can people in the UK, Australia, other parts of Europe, how can they get their hands on something that's credible, useful, but obviously not being able to come to your world, but how do they find a good source of supply?
We've actually been trying to find really good sources overseas so that and build relationships with them so that we can really identify who we can refer people to, because we get reached out by all the time, Australia, UK, you guys email us all the time, and we want to be able to provide good sources to you. But my recommendation would be is to start looking on social media. I know this would just come along with me because I know that can be a scary path.
You're going to say
But
TikTok in a minute, and then we're all going to lose our credibility.
okay, not TikTok. Possibly go to Instagram and look for people that are talking about psychedelics, like credible people that are talking about psychedelics. Maybe it could be naturopaths or different people, in the space that live where you live, who are credible sources, who they're not going to be selling the product, I'll tell you that. But they will be able to direct you to credible sources. So that would be the best way for you to be able to find really good, safe product.
Now that's interesting because you were saying that, and as you were saying it, I thought, you know what I'll do is I'll just have a quick look and see local health stores, things like lion's mane, mushrooms, organic lion's mane, lots of lion's mane. There's the poor lions, they must all be bald by now, the amount of lion's mane mushrooms is. Is that the sort of thing you're talking about? Is that the sort of thing people can buy?
So yeah, you can buy lion's mane, you can buy all types of functional mushrooms at your
Yeah.
local store. I think you
So that's
can.
not psychedelic though, is it?
No,
Exactly. Okay.
Mm,
And that's
yeah,
really important to know, isn't it? Because a lot of people think they're
yes,
buying psychedelic because they see the word mushroom, and it's very different, isn't it?
it very much is. Yeah, you want to make sure you might want to reach out to the source and just ask them, is this a psychedelic mushroom? We have people ask us all the time because we don't actually say it on our website. We say active ingredient, and we can tell them, yeah, it is, or in other companies, we don't, that's not what we're doing. So just ask.
Tiffany looks like she wants to join in. She's jumping up and down.
I'm just adjusting my seat.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
enjoying this conversation. It's great. But yes, they are very different. Functional mushroom in comparison to a psychedelic mushroom, one's hallucinogenic, one is not. So they're very different.
Okay. All right then. I'm liking this. What should I be asking you that I haven't asked yet? There's probably a really obvious question I haven't asked you. Obviously, we talked about the name of your site. You better tell us what that is again in a minute. But what else should I be asking you to help our listeners understand a bit more about the product?
I would say like how to microdose is something that's pretty common. I know we've touched on
That's
that.
pretty obvious. Yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah, how do you microdose? And so, like I said, you're microdosing with such a low dose, 1/10 to 1/20th. Usually that shows as 50 milligrams up to 350, 450 milligrams is like the range that people typically microdose in, depending on your tolerance level, depending on how you respond to the substance, the medicine. And usually we suggest do a lot of education ahead of time, resource
Yeah.
yourself, understand what microdosing is, the benefits, the outcomes, things along those lines. Connect with someone who maybe has experienced this. Those are always like really nice foundational places to start. But as you're getting started, you want to select a protocol, especially for those of you that are new. Select a protocol that is going to best support your lifestyle, your schedule, the days that you want to microdose, how often you want to microdose. And what we find for the best outcomes is to microdose at least 3 days minimum, up to usually 5-ish days. And so you don't want to do it every single day because the tolerance will start to usually build, but every other day, or you can do something like 3 days on, 3 days off. There's a lot of different protocols that we can share with you. Want to microdose at least 30 days minimum. That's where you'll start to really receive the benefits, the outcomes. And you can microdose usually up to 90 days. And then you want to pause, take about a week or two break, recalibrate, reset, not build the tolerance. And then you can maintain that and continue microdosing with the same protocol. You can change that protocol. So there's a lot of different ways that you can work with it, but those are usually the very foundational aspects. And then, of course, bringing in your goals, your intentions, bringing in that spiritual aspect of this. This is a very ancient medicine, and setting goals, setting intentions, creating like a ritual practice, such as like meditations and breath work to really pair with the practice seems to be really valuable for a lot of people.
Okay. Okay, excellent. Just thinking about the fact that actually, I just remember something in the UK that using this sort of therapy has only recently been decriminalized. So actually, that's probably why there are fewer resources, and that's why you see I think you called it functional mushrooms rather than
Yeah,
so
so
lion's
functional
mane, turkey
mushrooms
tail,
compared to
reishi,
psychedelic.
chaga, but none of them are psychedelics, are they? So I think it's early days in the UK and some of the European countries with this, but
But they
actually, why
are
not
coming
be,
around.
eh?
They are coming around. They
Yes,
are
yes,
starting to decriminalize, so it's
yes.
good information to have for sure.
Yeah, that's right. I used to work in the CBD area, and every CBD is everywhere now, and it will come as long as it's authentic stuff. The problem with CBD in the UK is that there's a lot of stuff that's marketed as it, and doesn't contain any. So
Mhm.
it just works on the placebo side. I don't know who's going to do the sales bit now, but I don't know. Tiffany suddenly is looking up and all excited. So tell us how to find these things, especially in the US. Where's the site? What can you find? Where are you on socials? Give us the lowdown and all that.
I'm gonna actually jump in
Oh,
here. So
wow.
you can find us on social media at Golden Rule Microdose. And we have a secondary Instagram that's Golden Rule Mushrooms. And then you can find us on the World Wide Web at goldenrulemushrooms.com. And we are absolutely available to answer questions. So you can reach out through any of our different platforms. You can also reach out to hello@goldenrulemushrooms.com. So that's the way you can find us. You can also find me on social media at rachel.pastor. And I think Tiffany's no, I forget it. What is it, Tiffany?
Tiffany
We're
Hearn.
just too chilled
I,
now.
I am Tiffany Heard. So first and last name. I am Tiffany Heard.
Very good. It's been an absolute joy meeting the pair of you. And it just reminds me of a terrible thing I have to just get off my chest before the end of this session. It's a very famous old joke, I'm afraid, which is why are mushrooms always welcome at parties?
Oh my God, I cannot wait to hear what the answer is.
I feel
Because
you
they're
now.
because they're fungi.
There we go.
And I apologize for dad
That makes
jokes
me.
this
You
early in
had to
the
say it. You had to say it.
don't know how that fits the American sense of humor. Well, look, it's been an absolute joy to meet the pair of you, and it's been fantastic. We'll have all the links in the show notes, and it's been a really fascinating talking to you today. And do your research, find out for yourselves, have a look at what's out there. Resilience is made up of many different things, and certainly at the moment in the US, you've got these good people creating all sorts of stuff with a product which clears every known ailment and gives you new nails. So thank you both for spending time with me today.
Thank you so much for having us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Russell.
You take care.